1 billion XRP just got released from Ripple Escrow, and Ripple relocked 700 million. But what is the Ripple Escrow? How does it work? Why was it put in the first place? And what purposes does it serve? I wanted to answer those questions because I know a lot of people are confused about the escrow. So I brought together some good clips from Zach Rector and Versan from Black Swan Capitalist, and I'm going to break down everything that you need to know in about the Ripple Escrow. Let's just jump right into it. Brad Garlinghouse, boom, 55 billion XRP now in escrow. This was back in December 7, 2017. So let's get a little history here. Ripple Escrow is a time-locked smart contract system that originally locked 55 billion XRP in late 2017 and has been releasing up to 1 billion XRP per month since January 18th to give the market a transparent, predictable supply schedule. It was created to remove the fears that Ripple could suddenly dump its large holdings, smoothing the XRP supply and incentivizing market makers and reducing the risk of sharp price shocks. The origins and timeline: Ripple announced its plan on May 16, 2017, committing to lock 55 billion escrow, basically 55% of the supply, in a cryptographically secured escrow on the XRP ledger. The actual locking transactions were combined on Ledger on December 16, 2017, and setting up contracts began releasing XRP in January 2018. The original design was called for 55 contracts at 1 billion XRP each expiring monthly over 55 months, although the final implementation used a mix of 1 billion XRP and 500 million XRP escrows that is still capped releases at 1 billion per month. How much XRP and current status? And at inception, 55 billion XRP is owned by Ripple and was placed into escrow, representing the majority of Ripple's roughly 80 billion XRP holdings. As monthly releases have progressed, a large share of has either been relocked or remains under escrow as of mid-2025, and about 35.9 billion XRP, is nearly 40% of the supply, is still in escrow and cannot be freely sold. But there are some caveats to that, and I want to talk to you in that just at the end about that. Circulating supply on the market is around 59 billion XRP, with a smaller amount held by Ripple outside escrow, roughly about 10 million XRP permanently burned. It's a little bit higher now. Mechanics: how the escrow works. Each escrow on the ledger smart contract is locked a fixed amount of XRP until a specific date. The XRP ledger's consensus rules enforce the funds and cannot move before that time. On the first day of each month, escrows expiring that month release up to 1 billion XRP to Ripple's operational wallets. Ripple typically uses part of this for institutional sales, market maker incentives, and creates new escrows with any unused XRP and push those tokens back on the schedule. This creates a rolling queue. The maximum new supply can enter the market in any month is capped, but if Ripple does not sell or distribute the full amount, those tokens are time locked again, extending the escrow program even further in the future. The problems that this was designed to solve: supply dump risk and investor uncertainty. Before escrow, Ripple controlled a large pool of liquid XRP, raising concerns that the company could flood the market and crash the price. Lack of supply and predictability for institutions, bank, payment providers, and market makers need to model long-term liquidity. The fixed transparent release curve gives them a predictable upper bound with a new XRP entering the circulation. Market making and liquidity depth: Ripple uses unlocked XRP to incentivize professional market makers to quote tighter spreads and key currency pairs, which supports cheaper and more efficient cross-border payments on the XRP ledger. And of course, reputation and regulatory optics. Structuring this majority of holdings is rule-based smart contracts helps demonstrate that Ripple is not free to arbitrarily sell off its entire stash, which is relevant in discussions with regulators, partners, and shareholders such as the SBI Group. Now, there's a ton of work that was put into this and released, by Smoke and all the other people, but let me play this. Now, Versan's kind of lost his voice here, but I want to just play this clip for you.
Firstly, by releasing XRP from escrow, Ripple is able to ensure the steady and predictable supply of XRP tokens, which is designed to foster more liquidity in the market. And because liquidity refers to the ease which an asset can be bought or sold without significantly impacting its price. So by maintaining liquidity, Ripple is able to facilitate the smooth functioning of the XRP ecosystem. And that makes it more attractive to investors, traders, and potential partnerships. And that's what this is all about. Second thing to look at is releasing XRP from escrow enables Ripple to distribute XRP tokens to various exchanges and institutions, thereby increasing accessibility to the cryptocurrency itself. And that is the broader narrative, because it makes the broader availability of XRP and it encourages more exchanges to list the token, which then in turn expands its reach and utility, which is the goal here. So it's just essential to emphasize the macro perspective of the escrow in understanding why Ripple's actions are the way they are regarding XRP and releasing it, instead of focusing solely on the short-term market movements and price fluctuations like everybody else. And that's what he's talking about, the noise, Again, the larger goal of Ripple is to establish XRP as a versatile and widely accepted digital asset as a real world utility. And that's exactly what the escrow is doing there, the release of XRP token.
All right, I thought that was a good video. Here's Zach Rector explaining Escrow as well.
Ripple has never dumped the billion XRP that they get from the escrow at the start of the month. That has never happened. And so we need to get clear about what actually takes place with the Ripple escrow. I've seen so much confusion about this, and this is one of the biggest pieces of XRP FUD that we've been battling since 2017 when they created the escrow. And if you go all the way back to 2017, you can track these on chain and you can see for yourself that every single month Ripple is returning XRP back to the escrow. They never have taken the 1 billion XRP that they get from the escrow at the start of the month and dumped it on the market. That has never happened, ever. And if you look over the past couple of years, they've actually been returning about 70 to 80% of the escrow back to the escrow. That'd be about 700 to 800 million XRP. So stop the FUD. Go check out the video breaking all of this down on YouTube.
All right, Zach did break it down really well right there. I just wanted to play that clip because I think he's doing a very excellent job here. And so escrowed XRP and the XRP ledger is technically owned and controlled by the account created in each escrow entity, but the funds themselves are locked by protocol conditions until the release schedule or cancellation. For Ripple's big corporate escrows, the destination is usually Ripple-controlled treasury wallets, although Ripple has said it can sell or transfer the rights of future escrow XRP to other parties without actually moving the tokens yet. So institutions can say, hey, you have 1 billion XRP being released on this certain date in the future. I want that XRP. Here is whatever there it is. And they can work deals like that. Outside of Ripple's escrow, there are thousands of smaller escrow entities created by other accounts, but on-chain data shows the overwhelming bulk of the 35 billion XRP is currently in the escrow tied to Ripple-related wallets rather than third-party institutions. Some reports note that while legal ownership of these tokens is attributed to Ripple, the company cannot bypass smart contract unlock schedule to access the 38 billion XRP that is still locked up in these conditions. When XRP unlocks for Ripple's monthly escrow, it almost always lands in a few known Ripple Treasury operational wallets first, not directly on exchanges. From there, coverage indicates Ripple technically allocates a minority of the unlocked amount to on-demand liquidity, Ripple payment corridors, and partner market makers, OTC deals, institutional products like ETPs or strategic partnerships, and limited exchange sales for liquidity while relocking 70 to 80% of that XRP. Now, we just saw the unlock happen for December, and here is the data. The latest on-chain data reveals Ripple's systemic monthly treasury management in action is highly efficient operation completed in just over 10 minutes. 1 billion XRP was deployed from the newly unlocked escrow wallets to long-term contracts main operating treasury. Two main wallets, Ripple 26 and Ripple 27, indicated that the flow releasing the billion XRP from the previously unlocked monthly attaché or monthly tranche, a total of 700 million XRP in transactions of 400 million and 300 million was immediately secured in new time lock escrow contracts. These funds are now scheduled to be released late 25 from this month now to 2028. So whatever Ripple is relocking, it goes to the back of the queue, and it starts all over again. This is a recurring pattern. And so this is kind of how it looks on chain. So here's the Ripple escrow wallet. And so as it gets unlocked, this is kind of how it is all kind of moved and created, but it's going from one to another and it is being relocked. Now, James Rule said each month Ripple unlocks 1 billion, but a significant portion, typically 70 to 80%, is immediately relocked into new escrows. The remaining 200 to 300 million is used for operational needs, institutional sales, and ecosystem report. Any unused XRP is placed back into a new escrow smart contracts. And then of course, talking about the same information we've said from a few other people. Now, the most interesting part here is what David Schwartz says, that Ripple could sell the right to receive the tokens released from escrow or even sell the accounts the escrow complete into, but the XRP still can't circulate. So there is speculation amongst XRP content creators and people on X that Ripple can or has sold some of this XRP to BlackRock and some of these higher institutions. Now, my main point here is Ripple is relocking 700 million XRP per month usually. If that XRP was really sold, wouldn't it go to where it was sold? So, I hear all these people saying this is done, this is done, this is done. Yes, those are possibilities, but what we can prove to a T is something completely different, right? We can speculate, but there's the stuff that we can actually prove is much different. So I do think Ripple and other institutions, Ripple will sell XRP to other institutions through this manner, but it's going to be interesting to see how the Clarity Act turns out. There's a provision in the Clarity Act that one company cannot own over 20% of the total tokens of a certain blockchain. Ripple, owning about 45 billion XRP, owns 45% still. So Ripple would need to get rid of 25% of that XRP. And that is where Ripple would probably either have to disclose who owns certain escrowed wallets, or in fact, what is their plan to bring that 45 billion down to just 20 billion XRP. Now that could get really interesting, and that's what I'm kind of sitting on the edge of my seat waiting to do. Now there's another issue here, which is ETFs, right? The ETF funds only have a few options to source XRP, and it isn't Ripple Escrow. No, Ripple cannot sell XRP directly to institutional investors at this time because of the 2023 court ruling deemed those institutional sales to be unregistered securities offerings. While the SEC has dropped its appeal and granted Ripple a waiver to raise capital under a specific exemption, institutional investors can still purchase XRP through other channels, such as digital asset exchanges or upcoming spot ETFs. Direct institutional sales were prohibited in the 2023. Programmatic sales are not prohibited. The court determined that programmatic or algorithmic sales of XRP on public exchanges were not unregistered securities offerings because the buyers did not know that they were buying directly from Ripple. Ripple cannot seek capital from institutions. Following the SEC's waiver, Ripple is now permitted to raise capital from accredited investors without registering with the SEC. But this still does not mean that it can resume the direct unregistered institutional sales of the past. And then institutional investors can still buy XRP. Institutional investors can still acquire XRP by purchasing it on digital asset trading platforms through other means, such as potential future XRP-based exchange-traded funds. So where are these ETFs going to get all of this new and extra XRP? That is going to be one of the most interesting questions in the days to come. Now, Dark Horse also said, when you understand the partnerships and how the new on-demand liquidity works and the legal framework of the enjoyment, the fact is that this isn't hard to see how XRP can get from escrow to ETF, but yeah, supply shock. So he's pointing out that Ripple can fuel ETFs by selling XRP via on-demand liquidity to partner exchanges who receive preferred pricing advantages, and those partners can resell discounted blocks to ETFs. So this is a way that institutions could probably get around what the judge ordered Ripple that they can and can't do. This is maybe an avenue that Ripple is looking at. And so how this would work, Ripple escrow here, Ripple sells to via on-demand liquidity, programmatic liquidity provisioning. Partner exchanges, market makers, liquidity providers accumulate large blocks. Partners receive favorable pricing, volume discounts, liquidity rebates, and spread advantages. And then partner executes secondary block trades. ETF buys discounted blocks from partners, not from Ripple. So that is the only way I know to go around this right now. If there's more ways to do this, I will let you know, but I hope this gives you a good understanding of the XRP Ripple escrow and what to expect in the days to come. All right, guys, I'm Crypto Sensei. I will see you next time. Thank you for being here.